Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF 44 coming at you another video. So, I was making a video there telling y'all that the epicenter of the flood edge was in regards to the flood that's supposed to be coming here. It's a flash flood warning, and then the flash flood warning sign came up on my phone and cut my camera off, which probably should not have actually happened. It's supposed to keep recording, but nevertheless, yeah. So, yeah, that video is going to be all of a minute and a half. But I've had trouble uploading, so it's probably going to take 25 minutes for that to upload, believe it or not. Anyway, I just wanted to come up here and bump my gums. It's going to take all night for this thing to upload, I'm sure. So I don't expect anybody to see this anytime soon, but it's Grammy night. And I don't know, man. I just don't look at any of this entertainment the same way, man, when I see how many people have been silent about the genocide. And as loud as I've been about it for the last 122 days, I just see a bunch of people who are all pretending like this is not happening, all pretending like they're not being funded by people who are supporting this in one way or another. I did see a few people stand up and, stand for ceasefire in regards to the Grammys, but I don't know, man. My mom was somebody who really, really appreciated the industry. She was a Hollywood dreamer, you know what I mean? She came out here for the dream and was a part of the whole thing. She loved watching Entertainment Tonight. She was the person who bought us the tabloid magazines. Like, she really was into the celebrity life. And I always had my appreciation for it to a degree, but I never really loved it that much. I thought it was all kinds of make-believe. Like, people are doing things to exalt themselves or what it is that they're into, usually to market to the world around me what they should want. And I just always looked at that as, like, to its most basic, and easiest way for me to have absorbed it. It just seemed really shallow as a child. Just the whole idea of want to be seen and take pictures of me and let me pose in weird stuff to make people say, "Ooh, look at him." I just never really vibed well with the entire thing. I never did. Growing up in Hollywood specifically, you would think the opposite, but I guess it was because of my mom's affinity for it, that energy, that made me kind of turned off by it to a degree. And I love movies. I go to the movies once every Friday because she was really into that. Come to Hollywood, go to the movie theater, Chinese man theater, all that stuff I've talked to you guys about a million times. And I love music because obviously my passion, one of my passions in life is music. So I always was into the music scene, and if black music specifically when I was a child. Not much hip hop, but more R&B and soul, and my mom's favorite type of music. I would listen to a lot as a small child, but it's the industry itself. It just seemed very controlled, and to a point, very disingenuous. We pretend to care about certain things and we want to look like we care about certain things, but the reality is we really care about our brand, and we really care about you caring about us as we pose and do what our forefathers and foremothers did, as they posed and snap pictures at me, and I stand with my neck high in this beautiful gown or this beautiful suit or whatever the weird fashion would be of the day, and you're going to remember me in this time, and it was glorious, and I was me, and I was wealthy, and it was not a block away where I could walk down the street and see somebody being ignored, sitting on the street who didn't have nothing, probably out of their mind, asking for something that nobody was giving them, and it just when you see that in your world and you're not warped by the whole thing to the point where it's like you don't care about what's going on, but what is about yourself. Yeah, I guess I was raised a Christian kid that believed in Jesus Christ, and when people said, of Jesus Christ to be a compassionate person, as someone who walked with people who didn't have a lot and valued people who didn't have great reputations, I think I took that literally as a very small child. So I'd look around and see the opposite of that, or I'd look around and see the contradiction, or I'd look around and sense the disingenuous energy that I would otherwise believe was there, and again be turned off by it. I didn't really like it. I didn't think any of those people were really good people. They gave off good art, but they were a part of a conglomerate or agreement to pretend. And a lot of people believed in wealth. They didn't believe in Jesus like I did. They didn't believe in his teachings. They didn't believe in his heart and the compassion he had for others. They didn't believe in anything but what energy could come their way as a result of being important, famous, and considered heralded. They believed in fame. I would say they believed in money, but money is something that helped them put forth the reputation of being important. It's like you need that in order to get this, but it was really this that they wanted. If everybody agreed being poor was what was going to give them the most energy, they would shun money. Because at the end of the day, they wanted attention. They wanted that energy. They wanted that for which was heralded to be literal idols. Like golden calves, but in the human form. They want to be worshipped. And I always thought that was just selfish. I always set myself in the middle of Hollywood, where all of this was supposed to be the epicenter of all of it, and felt myself to be somebody who was talented in the areas that these people were, but was independent of that entire thinking and never wanted to have anything to do with it. Sometimes I'd go on like auditions for commercials and stuff like that, but I never put my all into it because I always had this thought somewhere in my small mind, my childish mind, and because I had gone through some things personally that has put trauma in my heart, I never really wanted to be the center of attention. I didn't really want everybody to know me, because in my mind, everybody knowing me means it leaves me vulnerable to certain things that I don't think a lot of people who are in that business fear. In the me business, I don't think they care to be judged more so than just to be understood, to be famous. And whatever comes with that is just icing on the cake. But as long as you see me and know of me and celebrate me, then I guess it fulfilled what it is my life's purpose is. That's what it seemed to me that a lot of these of whom I was watching growing up was really into. Some of them were mercurial creatives and artists that didn't really love fame. And a lot of times, those were the ones who were the most famous. The ones who were so excellent at that craft that you couldn't deny them. But they didn't handle fame very well a lot of the time. I actually was sad for those people. I saw myself in them in a sense that I didn't want nothing to do with the fame, but I thought of myself as creative too. And they had to put up the guise of wanting to be an idol, so to speak, because that was the environment for which they were responsible for funding. See, that's what they were. Golden calves, with the emphasis on the gold, because they were supposed to be the ones They continue to keep that going. So it wasn't about whether or not they were talented. They were put into the quote unquote machine, and with their talent, they were exploited. I see that now in the young people who are celebrities today, exploited. I look behind their eyes, half of them look sad, look miserable. I see the same look in one celebrity's eye that I see in someone who's going through something very terrible's eyes. I see no difference. Their perspective on what it is that they're going through, or how it is to live the lives that one another is living in, they don't relate. One life is obviously much softer than the other, but the unhappiness it's kindred. And as I look at it, I just say, I'm scrolling on my Instagram, and I have the privilege, of course, as we all do in this era, to have the ability to see multiple images that have nothing to do with one another at once. So I'm scrolling through the Grammys, and then I'm looking at pictures of Gaza, and I'm looking at pictures of Congo, and then I'm looking at the Grammys, and it's all in a matter of flurrying seconds, and I'm seeing the same look in the eyes of the people who are being heralded as idols as I see in the eyes of the children in Gaza. And I don't understand how it is that I'm looking at this and understand this while the rest of the world around me doesn't appear to understand it or see it the way that I do. It's sadness in the eyes of people that we herald as the most famous and rich, and they're not, a lot of them are not very happy. And I'm supposed to look at money like it's supposed to be something that is going to fulfill my life. When I see people with money having the same look in their eyes as people who don't have anything at all, some of which who are tortured in circumstances that I can't fathom, no different than I can't fathom being famous with a lot of money. And I'm supposed to sit here and be disassociated from either of their pain as it pertains to me empathizing with them. On one hand, if I'm listening to those who are funding the entertainment business, I'm supposed to have no heart for Gaza whatsoever, because apparently that's not going on, or apparently the narrative that's to be believed is that Hamas is like worth, killing thousands of innocent people and trying to get just a few of them. It's like worth it. That's what the narrative is supposed to be. If I'm listening to people who are funding them, who are the golden idols, it appears to me. And on the other hand, I listen to people tell me that money's supposed to be something that is, and fame is something that I'm supposed to be rooting for as it pertains to my own self. When I'm getting on here and looking to post my channel, I'm supposed to be trying to get as famous as Doja Cat or famous as Killer Mike or something like that. And I'm not supposed to see that pain behind their eyes. I'm supposed to see the way that they're treated as inhumane from my perspective, because they have so much more than me, apparently, when I don't see any freedom in any of their situations either. Especially when I look at Killer Mike, thanking God for getting 3 Grammys tonight and then proceeding to get carried out in handcuffs the same night. God didn't give you them Grammys, bro. The industry did. And I don't know if I would even look at the Grammys as something that I would measure my success for when I look at Hova, Jigga, and Beyonce complaining about how they don't feel like they've gotten their just due for their family in regards to that same Grammy organization who is giving Beyonce more Grammys than they've given anyone else, as Hova has said. If the person who has the most Grammys doesn't feel like they're getting the most of what it is that they're supposed to be receiving, the most golden of idols of all, Beyonce, who is literally worshipped by millions of little girls and grown women all over the country, if she feels like she isn't getting her just due, why would I look at that as a measuring stick for success for what it is that I do? And that's why I look and I say to Killer Mike, you've been trying to wake our people up in regards to the way these people act for as long as you've been rapping, and now you don't see how this played itself out in the way that it did. You thanking God that he gave you those Grammys, bro. He never gave you those. It was the industry. You're in the land of the golden calf, brother. You're in the arms of the devil in that situation. Now, I never thought that until this year, mind you. I've listened to people thank God for Grammys all my life. I never once thought bad about it. But when he was sitting up there saying how he had reached his goals, all I thought about is all the lyrics he had said about how he couldn't trust these people in the first place. Only to finally be heralded by them and then furthermore carried out in handcuffs. You know, there was a concept back in the day. You take the strongest black buck and you humble him in the presence of all the others so they know that if he can be humbled, you can be humble. And that was that demonstration right there. See, I'm looking at all these people in their gowns, Doja Cat with her breasts showing more or less. Although I do think that those were actually coverings. But nevertheless, it's supposed to appear to be her breasts showing more or less. Look at Coily Ray with barely little panties on. All these different things. They look sad behind their eyes. They look drugged out of their mind or whatever. Trying to disassociate from the fact that they're being exploited. They're smart enough to know it. And then I scroll a little further and I see a mother holding her child who's barely alive. Gaza, that whole thing as I'm describing to you. It's all in the same flurry. And I'm like, how could we act like we don't see any of this and yet worship it as it pertains to these celebrities with the same eyes? I don't understand how to live in a world where I'm supposed to worship one aspect of this and ignore the other aspect of this when it's in the same flurry from which I see. How people can be on the other side of the lens as it pertains to these cameras, have the influence of many, and in the presence of trying to bring forth a entertainment and creation and spark wonder into the minds of people, they have no interest in sparking the idea that they should wake up to what it is that I'm describing right now. For the sake of what exactly? So that you can continue to receive the fame? Fame for what? The ability to keep people quiet and silent in the presence of what it is that we see? Cognitive dissonance, as they call it. Although I don't think I ever pronounced that correctly. The understanding of what it is to disassociate oneself from what it is that they see and compartmentalize what it is that you ultimately will acknowledge and ignore for the presence of what exactly? Things, attention, wealth, which is furthermore things, shallowness, meism, selfishness, I must, I. And I look over and I see people who are in squalor, absolute squalor in my phone. I go outside and I see people in tents, people who don't have anything. And I'm supposed to look them in the eyes and say they're not important because they're not behind the camera of the people who are important, who look just as miserable as them. Exploited and have no privacy to their lives. Some of whom are really, really talented, but must really, really, really keep up the environment for which this takes place. So therefore they have to step outside of themselves, pose for the camera, listen to everybody scream their names, and then proceed to know that there's a ticking time bomb attached to that fame that at any moment can be exploded. The rug pulled right out from underneath them. Every bad thing that they do could be brought to the forefront. Every sin that they have can be exposed to the world, no different than that of their image. at the whim of those who are in control of the environment is from which they fund with their talent and said image. And I'm supposed to disassociate myself from the idea that these are wealthy slaves, exploited to no end, to fund something that disassociates itself from humanity entirely as it pertains to those who I see on the other end of that scroll. Because they're not there, except for they are there. They're in pain, and I'm not supposed to care because I'm too busy distracted by the fact that you're right there staring at me with same sad eyes that they are staring at me with, but behind a different camera where you're exalted for being the shit. See, the way my soul works is I see parallels. So you accomplish the opposite. I compare the pain I see in their eyes, and then I look at yours and I see the same. That's all you're doing for me. It's helping me understand that there ain't a whole lot of difference there. It is as it pertains to the experience, but not as it pertains to how you're taking him in. And that's sad, because one is really suffering and the other is being exalted. But when you consider what exaltation really means in this society, where you have to pretend like you don't see them over there just to be over here and exalted, you understand why a lot of these people are sad without even really understanding how to articulate what it is they're going through, because they're taught that they're not supposed to acknowledge it at all. So they're constantly scrambling and reaching and scraping around for what matters. And they come up with money, they come up with clout, they come up with things, they come up with people who worship clout, money, and things without actually making a difference in this world, other than to say that I've continued the relay of shallow nature into the world itself. Worldly things, reinforcing more of what the world ultimately should not be, which is okay with seeing people suffer over there. Better yet, pretending to not care so that they can keep up what matters to me, self, I, the great golden calf, exhaustion of the glory that I am, for which honestly brings no glory because I don't even have the freedom to give a damn. And that, my friends, is what it is that I'm frustrated with. Too many people believe that it's useless and stepping outside of that nonsense to say, yo, maybe I have a voice that I can use to do something better. Maybe I have an opportunity to send some acknowledgement, at least in that direction, to say that I understand that somebody's going through something worse than what it is that I feel today. That's what it is that I ultimately would love to see one of these golden calves have the audacity to do, to step outside of what it is that ultimately makes them feel exalted and say that somebody's suffering somewhere, and I know it. I acknowledge it. And it ain't just what's within the confines of what is understood to be fine, because what we say is fine is ultimately what those above us who pay our bills are ultimately allowing us to say is fine, and they don't care because half of them are behind those crimes that are happening to them over there who are dying. So I'm telling you, right, as Jesus Christ has taught me to, not as the world, not as celebrities, not as the golden calves and the environment around me from which I was in Hollywood all my life, but from within Christ, who strengthens me to love those who don't pray like me, who've gone through things that I can't relate to, who've known sadness and known pain and no struggle and no faith even that I have never known to have to apply, because my life has not been as bad as theirs over there. You can say BDF 44 the great, BDF 44 this. You could herald me up in the sky to be the greatest thing if you want to. All I really want you to do when you think of me is think of those who are going through things worse than I. because God brought me through the worst of my life, and I'd like to see him do the same for them over there. I have no interest in being a golden calf, exalting myself. I think everybody likes positive attention and to be loved, but to be loved for what reasons? For lies? For the fact that I can disguise the realities of the circumstances around me, or be a glorified distraction to keep people from paying attention to what really is going on? So you herald me for that? Hey, look at me. I got the finest car. Ignore the fact that those people over there are getting blown up every 3 minutes. Hey, look at me. I got the nicest diamonds around my neck. Ignore the fact that they took them diamonds off of the cold hands of a child in Congo. Ignore these things because they don't affect you in your comfortable space. All you need to be worried about is the upkeep of the culture that we're trying to continue to relay forward to your kids and your grandkids, so that they can continue to turn a blind eye to stuff as we continue to do the same things over and over again. And my friends, that is no longer the life that we should be living, I don't believe. Not when these things are in our phones like this. You may be able to keep that up in the 2000s and the 90s and any time before that, but now that we're in this space where we can scroll up and see Grammys, scroll down and see Gaza, I think we need to wake up to the point where we say those who are acting like this isn't happening are just more so reinforcing the fact that it is. Every one of them silent celebrities who don't want to speak up for anything other than the exhaustion of their very own celebrity, you are why a lot of them who are suffering are able to continue doing so without the attention necessary. It's because you are the attention grabbers and you don't shine your light on them. You are who everyone's paying attention to instead of them. And you want to thank God for the ability to be exalted for that attention? You want to complain about what it is you're not receiving from within that attention? The only thing anybody needs from you is for you to turn over there and point. And you refuse because you're too busy looking at yourselves in the mirror and looking around to see who else is giving you views. And those who are paying you your dues, that's exactly what they want you to do. So they can keep on doing this. See, I believe in a living God, man. I do. So when people pretend to be gods or want to more or less be fake gods, idols, in the presence of the people, I'm offended by it to a degree, naturally. Organically offended by it. It doesn't mean that I haven't appreciated the art that's been provided to me by these idols in certain situations, or found myself being a complete hypocrite by appreciating them probably too much throughout the course of my life. Influenced by the world around me to some degree, but at the end of the day, it always comes back around to me understanding this for which I've been describing for the last 28 minutes. That no matter how many idols have plans to exalt themselves, it's only one or two individuals or two conglomerates away from them that can pull the rug out from under them and take their fame away or make them famous for all the wrong things. At any given moment, you don't find yourself being free while having yourself attached to that. You had better stay quiet about Gaza. You had better not mention the Congo. You had better not mention this or that or whatever the case the truth may be. In fact, they would probably pick you out to be an idol because you wouldn't. You don't profile as someone who would raise attention on such issues or buck the system in such a way that would hold it accountable. It's your responsibility as chosen idols to distract all of us who would, or drown out our voices so that we don't have the opportunity to do so. That's what I'm saying to all my celebrity followers who follow me. Anybody, if you're a celebrity of any kind, you need to understand what your purpose is as it pertains to those who pretend to be God versus your purpose for those that one who is a God in the sky, who provides us every good thing we've ever received and every purpose we'll ever accomplish in this life. If you are famous, then your job to the idol God is to distract those of us who would otherwise point the world toward God. And your purpose in God's eyes, the real God, is for you to point yourself at God so all of us will point at him too. And in doing so, that'll trickle down to you seeing what's going on in Gaza, Congo, and anywhere else that otherwise needs your attention. A lot of y'all want to just worship money, though. A lot of y'all got significant others in your life that would otherwise pull you away from substance and toward being superficial just off of the strength of trying to keep them around. It's more of that out there than probably not. And a lot of y'all don't realize it. Some of the people in your lives, they're there to keep you shallow. You got to keep up that guys, because if you don't, you're going to lose them. They didn't come from God. They're there to keep us from God by way of you. Y'all got to stop thinking that the world doesn't have a spirituality to it so that you can start working toward what it is that ultimately is good. That you can use that influence that you have that can point you toward things that don't have you aging poorly in history as it pertains to what side of the fence you stood on when it came to saving the world from itself and its worldly ways. A lot of y'all are talented, but y'all fell in love with money and being idols, not really knowing what the true purpose of an idol actually is, which is to give someone an alternative to worship instead of the God that they should otherwise be serving, the God that created them, the God that has their back, the God that ultimately wants them to be a better reflection upon themselves and their last names as they go forward. You and all of your wealth is supposed to pull them away from that. You and all of your shiny objects and your self-exhaustion and your conceited nature and those agreeables who want to scream your name and bring about the environment for which you are worshipped, it is meant to keep people from worshiping the God that created them. It's evil in its purest form, and its intention is to get wealthy off of your back and discard of you when it's done. Buck it. That's what you do. You buck that system. You take every buck that you've earned and you buck that system. You bring light to those who don't have a voice. You bring attention to these things that they don't want you to bring attention to. Why? Because God exists. That is why. Because he actually does. And within the understanding of that, you know that you have someone above who is judging you not for what you're doing while on earth in exalting yourself, but what you're doing while on earth in helping bring forth a betterment to the world around you. Not a worsening, not more shallow nature that's going to keep people in the pockets of the evil that he is, but someone who's going to feed the hungry, save the kids, etc. That is what you should be on. While y'all trying to live plush lives, lovely lives, funneling money into these various companies that give you the guise of culture. A lot of these companies, you need to be wondering what they're funding. What are they really into? Where's that money going back to after you pour it into them and you put on their Louis and they Louis Vuitton, all this stuff. You put on all this stuff that is considered high fashion. Where is that money going? What are they funneling into? Just the business and that's it? Okay, that'd be great. That would be. You gonna spend $6,000 on a bag? Cool. Who are you buying what from, and where are they putting that? You care, or you just want to be seen as wealthy? That's it. You just want to be seen as a golden calf. That's it. A distraction away from God is what you are for people who need him, for people who don't have a path toward being able to take care of themselves, for people who don't have a path toward getting out of the webs from which those who are paying you have laid out for them. Webs that are meant to keep them further from their dreams while watching you gloat about how you've experienced yours. This is exactly what the chore is. They want you to influence us. That is all they care about. That's why they dress you up the way they do. That's why you look as glamorous as you do. That's why you look as bizarre as you do. It's because they want you to influence us. And if you are distracting enough to keep us looking at you, they can do other stuff while neither of us are looking, you or us. You exalt yourself, we worship you, they kill kids over there, and all the other stuff that they do. You must be aware of what it is that they truly want from you. My name is BDF 44. I thank you all for watching.